to IFAS Extension. I'm your host, Anita Neal, and today we're going to be talking about the Indian River Lagoon. And this is called the Lagoon in You. We're going to talk about how fascinating the Indian River Lagoon is, and it's obviously in our front yards and maybe some people's backyards for that matter, but it is our gateway to the ocean, and of course it does wonderful things. It's known as one of the most biologically diverse areas in the United States, so it's a really great treasure that we have here. Unfortunately, there are times when it's in peril, and one of them is right now, and we are going to be joining with us some guests today that are going to tell us what we can do, our own personal preferences that we can do that will help the health of our Indian River Lagoon. And I have two guests with me today. Sue Munyon, our 4-H agent.
Hi.
Hi. And we have Carly Miranda, our 4-H program assistant.
Hello.
And both of you are working with the Indian Lagoon program that we have. So,
yes,
Sue, tell me a little bit about clarifying. We call it the Indian River Lagoon, right? So, is it a river?
Actually, the Indian River Lagoon is not a river. It is an estuary that is also a very unique body of water called the lagoon. So it is the most biologically diverse lagoon estuary in the North America.
Wow.
So yeah, we are so privileged to have that access to that type of a body of water right there near us. So we're very fortunate, and a lot of people don't even know how fortunate we are.
So is it just here in St. Lucie County?
Actually, the Indian River Lagoon stretches 156 miles.
Wow.
And it starts at the Ponce de Leon Inlet up in Volusia County, and it stretches down to the Jupiter Inlet. And we are in a prime area of the lagoon, and we have just such diversity in that lagoon that it's just a precious treasure.
When you say diversity, some people may or may not know that term. So when I think of diversity, I think of a variety of things. So is that what we're talking about?
Absolutely. There is a wide variety of plant, animal species that live in the lagoon. And actually, it is a combination of tropical and subtropical species.
Oh.
And it's really a great mix, and it's a very unusual mix that we are fortunate to have.
I guess because it goes from Volusia down to closer where it's more tropical.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well,
So,
what are some of the things we would find?
Oh, goodness. So to begin with, some of the building blocks for the diversity of the lagoon are the seagrass meadows that we have.
Okay.
The seagrass meadows, there are 7 different types of seagrasses that live in the lagoon. And the seagrasses actually work as a habitat, as a food source. They are the building blocks that start, that help to create the diversity that's in the lagoon. And from there you go on to hundreds and hundreds of fish species, and then we have mammals, and we have all kinds of diversity there in as far as marine life that live in the lagoon. Most of the marine life that live in the ocean have their beginnings or their start in the lagoon. So it's very important that they have the seagrasses and the mangroves in order to which serve as a nursery. And they can actually start their beginning there. They travel out the inlet, and there they go into the ocean and become the marine life that we know.
Well, we've seen mangroves, and I know there's how many kinds of mangroves?
There's 3 different kinds of mangroves. The ones that you see closer to the water are the red mangroves.
Okay.
Those are the ones that have the fingers that go down into the water.
Right.
And they serve several different purposes. One of the purposes is the sediment and sand get washed in the fingers of the mangrove, and that actually will create a spoil island with the buildup of the sand. They also are the homes to juvenile fish, marine life. They hide in and amongst those fingers. Yes.
Yeah, very good. And then there's the fingers that go down, and I know I've heard the kids go in the fingers that go up. So that's the black mangroves?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then there's a white, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So
Red,
the
black,
mangroves and the seagrasses are not like our turf grass, but very similar in the fact that they take the sunlight and make food for other organisms.
Correct. Correct. And the problem comes in when we talk about the health of the lagoon is the seagrass is a great monitor for the health of the lagoon.
So if the seagrass is good, the lagoon is good?
Correct, correct. That is a great indicator of the health of the lagoon, is to look at the seagrasses. When the water quality of the lagoon is not where it should be, the sunlight doesn't have a chance to reach the seagrasses.
Right.
So when the sunlight doesn't reach the seagrasses, then they are depleted.
They can't photosynthesize.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's really important to have. Well, Carly, tell me a little bit about what you like about the lagoon, or what you remember that you know, I know you were born here and grew up here, so you probably had lots of experiences on the lagoon.
Yeah, I lived here my whole life, so just, you know, growing up and spending time out there with my family, I've been here my whole life, and it's always been a place that we like to go to just to relax and enjoy, and it's so beautiful. I mean, you can go out on a boat and just look out and you see fish, and it's always, you see something new. It's like every time you go out, sometimes you see fish, and sometimes you see dolphins. We went out once with my family and saw like a family of dolphins. There was a little baby, and you know, stuff like that you never forget. So
right.
It's really fun.
Do you like to go fishing?
Not so good at fishing, but I do like going out on boats, like with my family and stuff, and they fish better than I do.
Yeah, I'm not good at that either. I have to agree. There's a lot of others that are better at fishing than I am. Yeah, that's very true. Well, the lagoon is a great resource that we have, and I know you guys are very involved in the program that educates youth. So maybe tell me a little bit about this program, because a lot of our listeners probably don't know about it.
Yes, well, very excited this year. We've started a new program. It's called the Indian River Lagoon and You, and it's geared towards youth in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade of public school in St. Lucie County. And the grant money is used to educate students about the lagoon and about directly how they affect the lagoon, because most people, youth and adults, don't realize that you don't have to live right on the lagoon in order to affect it. You can live miles away and still have an effect on the Indian River Lagoon. So one of the things that goes along with this program is we do an in-class presentation to introduce the concepts and the lagoon as an overall concept to the students. And it's very interesting, Anita, because I would say between 85 to 95% of the students that we talk to do not realize that they live near a body of water that's called the Indian River Lagoon. So to me, that speaks volumes, because they have no identity to it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to educate students as far as, here's where you live, and what you do, whether it's in Western Fort Pierce or in Port St. Lucie, you have a direct effect on the Indian River Lagoon. So we talk about why the lagoon is so important, and like we were talking about previously, the diversity of plants and animal life that are in the lagoon.
I bet they get to name them, don't they?
They really do. And we could go on for days just talking about species and things you'll find in the lagoon. So we talk about, you know, of course, the most popular ones are the dolphins and the manatee. And then we talk about how their actions as a family affect the lagoon and the quality of water that is in the lagoon. So we try to relate it back to, okay, well, here's this beautiful resource. Here's this wonderful resource that we have. Here's how you can help keep it in pristine condition.
Very good. So what are some of the things you tell them?
Well, there's some of the things we tell them is, first of all, every time you run the water, flush a toilet, or anything like that, it affects the lagoon. Freshwater runoff affects the lagoon. Fertilization on your yards, over-fertilization, not the right fertilization at the wrong time of year, affects the lagoon. Throwing your trash on the ground in Port St. Lucie affects the lagoon. So we kind of relate it back to things that they can really identify with as a person and as a family. After we do the presentation, the 3rd and 4th graders go on a seining trip to the lagoon.
Oh, how cool.
Yes, we go to the St. Lucie County Aquarium. We go in the water right there at near the mouth of the inlet.
Kids do too.
Kids are in the water,
wow.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we are actually seining, which is a big, huge net that takes 2 people.
Okay, explain it to me. A net.
It's a net, and it's stretched between 2 people.
Okay.
They go out into the seagrass meadows, and they drag the net, which drags the bottom, and we pull up some kinds of, different juvenile sea critters
So they get to see
that
the
are in there.
diversity that we just talked
So
about.
they absolutely get to
That's
see
in
the
the seagrass.
diversity that is living in the
Wow.
seagrass.
Very cool.
And just like Mother Nature is, some days we pull up all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And some days we don't pull up that much because maybe the weather conditions are not right or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But that's also a good lesson for students as well, that that nature is not a show.
Right.
It's-
Can't just like turn on.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes we get to see dolphin, but we can't plan that.
Yeah.
So we never know. So it's always a nice surprise for us. But it gives the students a connection to the lagoon directly.
Mm-hmm.
Then what they do is they go into the aquarium, which has a whole ecosystem related to the Indian River Lagoon.
Okay.
In the aquarium, it's a great place if anybody
So it
hasn't
kind of
been there before.
reinforces a little bit of what they have.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very
That's the 3rd and 4th graders. The 5th graders go on a boat tour, and that's with Captain Chop Leger, and he takes them on a pontoon boat. And we have, they actually get a tour. They actually see where the freshwater runoff is into the Indian River Lagoon. They get to see pods of dolphin. They get to see manatee. They will, get right up into the mangroves. They'll be passing by bird rookeries, which take place on the mangrove islands. They get to look at the different crustaceans that are actually living in the water. So they look under a microscope at the water
in the
samples.
boat?
In the boat.
They have microscopes in the boat?
Yes, little handheld microscopes.
Oh, okay.
It's really fun. It's really exciting. It is a wonderful hands-on educational opportunity that we are giving 5th graders.
Wow, really cool.
All because of this grant.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Carla, what did you see when did you go seining?
I do. Seining is probably one of my favorite things. It's
Okay.
really fun because, the kids are kind of, some of them, like Sue said, they, don't really know much about the lagoon. And so they get out there and they're pretty excited and they're all, oh, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And just kind of watching them get to actually catch fish because they pull their nets up and they're like, oh, I see something, it's moving,
Oh, wow.
And it's so exciting to get to see them learning hands-on, getting to identify different fish that they maybe just saw in the aquarium, and now they're getting to see them in the wild, and it's really fun. We pull up some really cool stuff sometimes, so it's a lot of fun to get to watch them really learn and get to relate to it, and then they have stories for themselves of how they experience the lagoon. So
Right, and they can go home and tell their parents.
They do, yeah.
Which is one of the programs you want to do is you always want to have the kids are so good about telling their parents what to do.
Yes,
So, this
of
is
course.
kind of a nice thing, like Sue was saying, about what you can do as yourself to keep from polluting the Indian River Lagoon. So I'm sure they went home probably and told them all those things,
Yes.
like don't do this or don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's an important thing. Well, when you get the kids there and they're ready to go seining, are they used to that? Because Sue was mentioning that a lot of the kids didn't even know about the lagoon. So are they ready to get in the water? Are they a little anxious? Are they apprehensive?
We get such a mix, but there's some kids, that are super excited and they're like jumping in, and then there's some kids that are like, I don't know if I want to do this, and it's like, come on, it's fun, I promise, and then they get in and it's like, woohoo, and of course there's the shock of the water too.
Right,
it's a little cool, but once they get in, they're like, oh, this is so much fun. So there's some kids that get a little nervous, but it melts away, and as soon as they catch a fish, it's like everything's so exciting.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Well, I think they probably get, if they're not used to the lagoon or even the ocean for that matter, they probably have you see movies where there's the sharks
Jaws.
and the alligators, and you think that's what you're going to possibly run into. So there's that built-in fear that they have sometimes when they get there. Yeah. So that's really neat. Well, I know the program, you take them on a boat, you do the seining and all of that, and I know you have some materials that you have, because that's what 4-H does. They produce the materials that they take home, that they do in the classroom and everything. Tell us a little bit about some of those things that you give them or to have them take home to their parents.
Well, yes, we've developed a workbook, and in the workbook it gives a lot of great information in a very fun way for the kids to learn about the Indian River Lagoon, and it talks about what are ways that you as a person can help the lagoon. We also have a really great owner's guide. This came from the St. John's Water Management District. It's called An Owner's Guide, the Indian River Lagoon. It's Your Lagoon.
Okay.
And it is, I think, very well done because it puts it in layman's terms about how any family can make an impact on the lagoon. And just by very simple things that you do or don't do can actually have a positive or a negative effect. So it all starts with the individuals. And, you know, government can do a lot.
Yeah.
However, it's the individuals that can really make the difference in the lagoon. You know, everybody wants to point a finger at, here's the source of the problem. Well, the source of the problem is all of us.
Right. Right.
So,
there's not one source.
Exactly, exactly. So the source is all of us. So if we all just take a few really simple, small steps, we can make a huge impact just by adjusting our behaviors.
So you had mentioned just some of the ones, just to kind of go over them because some of our listeners might be interested too, but you had mentioned using the proper fertilization at the proper time.
Correct.
Watering practices, irrigation, or maybe not fertilizing or pesticides during a rainfall event. Proper irrigation times probably too. But there's other things that I know people have pets and stuff, and that's also important to pick up after your pets.
Sure,
because,
absolutely. Yeah, pet waste is a problem because it does get washed into the water system.
Right.
So that is a problem. You need to pick up after your pet and put it and dispose of it in the proper way. Just for small things like if you're in a parking lot and you see trash, that trash, when the next rainfall comes, is going to get washed down the drain, and then it's going
that drain goes into...
It's going to go into the Indian River Lagoon.
I know you tell the kids that, and you go, okay, a piece of paper came out of your backpack into the parking lot. Where's it going? The Indian River Lagoon.
Yes, they finally understand that after a while, that everything that goes onto the ground into the water table will end up in the lagoon, and that's a fact. So we are all responsible to make sure that we do what we can to help and eliminate some of those unneeded things that do go into the lagoon. And some of those are our pet waste, garbage, overuse of pesticide, overuse of fertilizer, used at the wrong time.
Right.
If people just took a little bit of caution, we could avoid a lot of those problems. Old septic systems that are not up to date and not up to code are a big contributor also to the lagoon problems.
That's a very good point. Well, there's a lot of things that for people to think about and what they can do. And of course, they can always contact you for more information, or there's a lot of people out in the community that have the same thoughts in mind that are trying to help the community. And in the county and the cities are all trying to do their part too, up and down the lagoon.
Yes.
You know, they're all trying to pass different ordinances that may help in situations. Some of them are looking at, you know, we have citizens groups that have organized that try to help the group. So you're right, education is key. Training, teaching people, and the kids teaching their parents what they should and shouldn't do is really important for that aspect of it. Is there anything else that you guys want to mention? I know that you typically work with youth in 4-H. That's your role. You do work with agriculture as well. Agriculture has impacts on the environment, usually very positive because we all love to eat. I know I do. And of course, their agricultural practices, most of them are very good and sound because they follow the best management practices.
Yes.
So what we're asking in this case is homeowners and people that do maintenance for other homeowners, perhaps, to follow those same kind of guidelines that that you've mentioned, and make sure that one of the things that we teach in professionals, the landscape professionals, is when they mow the lawn, not to take the grass clippings into the road, where they again go down the drain and into, and those are full of nutrients. So that all goes into the lagoon, because you mentioned the seagrass and how that can be impacted by all those nutrients and algae blooms and stuff like that.
Yes, and one of the things that I don't believe I mentioned is the Indian River Lagoon has a unique blend of water. It's called brackish water.
Yeah.
And the brackish water is a combination of fresh and salt water. And of course, the salt water is coming from the Atlantic Ocean. Excuse me. And then the fresh water is coming from the creeks and canals. And that delicate balance is very
important. That,
very fragile.
Yeah, you're right. That mixture that you have of fresh and salt is a special mixture. So that mixture has to be just right. If you have too much fresh water and we get freshwater releases from rivers and lakes and things of that nature, and if we get too much of that, then it throws that balance off. So then we have problems that can occur from that accentuation of fresh water.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of problems with that situation. So Sue's right, there's a lot of things that impact our lagoon and things that we can think of. And Carly, I know you've been here for a long time, so have you seen changes in the lagoon over the years that you've been here?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of change, and just time changes things, and just kind of hearing what's been going on lately and everything. Of course, it's kind of gotten this big hype lately, and I don't remember it as much when I was younger, hearing so much about it, but, throughout the years of just hearing more and more about how people should be, taking care of the lagoon, because it is, it's getting harmed by just everyday things that we don't even think about. So just through the years, hearing more and more education coming out about it to teach kids. And,
well, I think it's right. We learn now to turn our water off when we're brushing our teeth.
Yeah.
We've learned to recycle. We had to be told to recycle how many years before we actually, I got it, So these kinds of things take time. People are a little bit hesitant to take on new changes in their lifestyle, perhaps. But there's a lot of things they can do to help that lifestyle. And we have a tremendous impact on our environment. So hopefully that will, hopefully your program will lead the way so people can learn, whether it's through their children or from this program right here. But I think it's important for us to share with them how important this wonderful jewel that we have is to our environment as well as our well-being, because a lot of our economic entities that have here that count on the lagoon for their own employment and for their own resources. There's a lot of diversity in that sense too, not just in what's in the lagoon itself. So, so what's your favorite organism, or animal, or fish, or?
The aquarium actually just recently got an octopus, and that was really cool to see. Usually I'd say seahorse, but since it was kind of a first time of seeing an octopus there, I was really excited about that. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite thing that you caught, or what did you catch when you were out there with the kids?
We caught a seahorse, and that was very exciting. It happened once, one of the first few weeks I had been out there, and it was very exciting. The kids were just so wound up. Oh my goodness, look, it's a seahorse. And they're all grabbing their friends and pulling them over to look. So that was by far the most exciting.
So when you guys catch those animals like the seahorse or whatever else, you keep them? What do you do with them?
They're released back as soon as we're done. They're kept in a bucket of their water, and sometimes
so they can be viewed?
Yeah, just so the kids, they're kept in a clear bucket so that the kids can come and they can all see what they caught. And when we're done, they go back in the water. Sometimes the aquarium will come out and check out what we have and see if there's anything that, they need to bring in or anything like that.
Oh, they might want to put in their tanks?
Yeah, if they find something that's, if we catch something that's not normal or something like that. So, but for the most part, they all go right back in the water when we're done. So.
Okay. Well, and I know that Sue mentioned that you use the seining nets. Is there other equipment that you use when you're out there with the kids? Because I know you have, 30 kids at a time, so 2 nets probably. I know that they're probably not all like, okay, I'm just being really patient here on the shore while you do this.
Yeah, that's tough. We actually do. We have some little hand nets, so they can go out and scoop up things, by themselves. They'll go out in a little section and scoop up little fish, and they often find little hermit crabs and stuff like that. But we also have hydroscopes, which are
that sounds
super
cool.
fun.
What are hydroscopes?
It's plastic and it's got like a glass bottom, and they can press it down into the water and look through. And so it kind of makes it easier for them to see right down into the seagrass.
Okay.
So, you know, we have some kids that get the concept and they're like, this is awesome. And then I had a kid last week that was running through and he's like, it's sand. I see sand. I'm like, well, if you're excited about sand, that's so great. But they love it. They love that they can just, you know, look down and really see clearly.
So it's like a magnifier?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's really,
That's
really
kinda
fun.
neat. Yeah.
I enjoy them.
And do you see more than sand?
Yes, I do.
Well, Sue, is there anything you want to add?
I just feel like this program is such a great asset to this community because education is the key.
It is.
And, you know, in extension, we truly believe that starting young with education is the key to making adults that in the future make great decisions as far as what the future of this community holds. So education, 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 that's kind of what we preach.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make this a personal endeavor, the Indian River Lagoon, for each of the children in St. Lucie County. We're trying to make it their own.
Good. Very good. Well, I hope it continues for you, because it's a really good, sounds like a very good program, and I think our kids are going to learn, and maybe we can talk again about what are the results of this, because I know you have to keep that evaluation, and I know the children go home with an evaluation that their parents can fill out and see what they've learned and how they might be doing things differently. And
they sure do, and hopefully, you know, by the end of the year, which would be September, would be the end of our grant year, we will have an evaluation on hopeful behavior changes that this program has encouraged and you know, educated people on.
Great, great, great opportunities. Well, thank you both for joining us today. And I think this is a great opportunity for others to learn, and maybe other communities around the coast can maybe take on some of these concepts and teach their youth as well. And until next time, if you have any questions about the Indian River Lagoon and how to promote the health of the lagoon, give our office a call and talk to Sue Munyon or Carly Miranda, and they can help you out with that. And until next time, we'll have another Extension adventure.